You're listening to Closing Market Weekly, the show where real estate closings meet real world insight. With your host, Phillip Hogan. And every week we break down the trends, tools, and the timing that keeps deals moving forward. Let's dive in. Hi, I'm Phillip Hogan, host of Closing Market Weekly and the CEO of the Signing Services of America. And over the past few episodes, I've been talking about my upcoming book, Relentless Excellence, a story of family, business building, and value-driven leadership. And I don't want to talk about actually the book, but I want to more so focus on the inspirations that I called upon to write the book. And therefore, hopefully that inspire you to want to go and buy the book. And you can also go to my website, philliphogan.com. That's PHILLIP.com, and there, learn a little bit more, scroll through the website, learn a little bit more about myself and the businesses that I've started in my projects. But more importantly, you can read an excerpt from the book, and if you're inspired, you'll be able to subscribe to the book. And then when the book is announced or launched, we will invite you to purchase the book. And so the inspiration that I got to write this book is called upon really the birth of my entrepreneurial parents. My parents really exposed me to the life of an entrepreneur at a very early age. And, back then, and I'm talking about in the 60s, 70s, children were required to offer free labor to our parents' businesses. At least my family was. I don't know about yours. And as a result, I willingly, went along, and it was fun. My cousins and I, we would work, and my uncle had a business, and then my parents had theirs. And so the cousins would come and work, within the businesses, either, the book will tell you about that stuff. But the point that I'm making here, right, is that while being with my family, particularly my parents, and building their businesses, I discovered something. Back then I didn't. Back then it was like, okay, I was doing something my parents wanted me to do, and whatever they wanted me to do, I did it. But as I got older, I began to understand, well, really, when I had this natural way of, when I built my first business, I had a natural way of wanting to reach out to members, to work within a role that I had created within the company. And what I realized is that I was building a team. I was building a team of excellence. And I got this from my parents. And it was amazing because the things that I said, the things that I did, the outcomes that I was looking for, I was all calling upon the days of when I was working with my parents and driving, from one part of New York to other, to the businesses and back, and listening to, my father and my parents talk, either among themselves or with me, or the three of us. And as I said earlier, during those formative years, it was all about really just being, taking lessons, learning information. And back then I didn't have an idea that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So it didn't have any impact. But what it did is that I was open to this information. I witnessed, my parents really commit themselves to their dreams. And it required excellence. It required the commitment to getting things done, not the way they wanted to do it, but to the right way. And the right way, meant sometimes going the extra mile, because that's just how they looked at things. And I, had to go the extra mile as well. And I'm thankful that my parents instilled this value in me. Sometimes it's a pain in the butt. Sometimes I don't want to go the extra mile, but it's like I have no choice, because it's who I am. And when I have, recognized that I'm just dissatisfied until things look exactly the way my mind says they look, then I'm the job is done. And so one of the features that my parents instilled in me is the team concept, and their businesses required employees. And I saw my parents hire the employee, supervise them or manage them, evaluate them, terminate them, rehire maybe the same employee or hire other employees. And so, and then as my parents, grew into a larger scale business, they had to have, more employees. And again, I saw my parents, have a kind of like a refined way of hiring employees for their second business, and who was there sitting, ringside? Me. And what was I doing? Taking it all in. Again, I didn't realize that I would be an entrepreneur back then, but I was taking it in. And oh my goodness, I'm so happy that I experienced that. I'm so happy that my parents allowed me to be involved, not so much in the decision making, but more so to be involved in listening and watching, and then asking questions. And then all I was doing was recording this information, this this volumes and volumes and volumes of information I had stored, and it just remained dormant, right? In Philip, until I got to the age and the place in my life where I was ready to become an entrepreneur. And when I did, it all of a sudden all of this information started coming out, and I had, a treasure chest of valuable information that I got from my parents as to how not only build a business, not only lead a business, but understand who's involved in your business and be able to value those individuals that's involved in your business. In my book, I mentioned one of the things that my father taught me. I won't tell you now. You can go to philliphogan.com. That's phillip.com, and read an excerpt from the book, and there you'll learn what it is that my father taught me. And if you want to read more, I encourage you to go into the section of the website where you can order the book, and when it's launched, we'll invite you to purchase, and this you can read the story of my life, and thus the life of my parents, and thus the things that we accomplished. And and one of the things that I can really attribute to my parents, my involvement in my parents' businesses, is really understanding being a team leader, and then inviting members, hiring members to be on your team to do what? To help the organization or help the company move forward. And my father had a wonderful way of saying things. He had I kind of like say a unique way of saying things, and I got it, and but again, they were those lessons, those ways, that communication, that information, right? It was just being poured into me, and poured and poured and poured, and until it was time for me to use it. And when I started my first company, it came out, and it's still coming out. And here I am, it'll be 10 years that I have been running Signing Services of America. And I'm thankful for that. But I owe it all to really my parents, and them help me, and for me to understand it, for them instilling to me the importance of being a team, having a team, inviting members up to your, having the concept of being a team, and then of course hiring people to be on your team, and all that goes on to, helping to retain those individuals to stay on the team. And it's been just been a wonderful journey. And so the other thing that I learned from my parents is really just being able to have you, and that, speaking of the team, really, that's the value, right? The book is mentioned value driven leadership. Well, one of the values is being able to have a team member and value their involvement in your business or in my businesses, right? And they have a, employees have a choice. They can say, shoot, I don't want to work for you, you know what I mean? Or they say, yeah, I do want to work for you. And money isn't, or to say compensation is not always the reason that people want to work for a company and just stay working for a company, right? My father had an expression, and yeah, I'm not going to share that with you now, but he had an expression that's in me to this day, And it's a powerful expression. It made a lot of sense then, and it makes more sense now because I'm actually in a position where I have to hire people, and people will have a choice as to what they want to do, where they want to do it, and who they want to do it. And if you create an environment where that team member feels accepted, then marvelous, great things can be accomplished. And again, my parents, kind of like built that environment for people to want to be involved, and they contributed. And as a result of their contributions, my company scaled, and then my parents' company scaled. And again, it was just an amazing time for me to be with my parents and to really be involved, and to see them, yes, have a vision as to what kind of business they wanted, then go about building that business, and then being successful. And if anybody is in the audience has experienced that, you'll know what I'm talking about, right? And if you haven't, then read my book, and which is Relentless Excellence, a story of family, value, business building, and value-driven leadership. And there I talk about what you can experience by being involved in businesses. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for listening in. If you haven't subscribed, please, if you subscribe, obviously you have because you're listening, but encourage other people to, check us out on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. And and then we'll see you for our next episode. Same time, same channel. Bye for now. Thanks for tuning in to the Closing Market Weekly. If you found this episode valuable, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone in the industry. For more insights from the front lines of real estate closings, we'll see you next week.